Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's been almost 4 months since I've posted a video, I believe. I was definitely dealing with things with myself that are, you gotta put yourself first, so I could not post any videos. Just didn't really have the time to do so I apologize, but not really, because I was taking care of myself. As you can see by the title, which is probably down there, this is a story of 2 months ago when I was put into a psychiatric unit, which is a behavioral health hospital, which you hear a lot of people say psych ward, but I don't like that term, so we're not going to say that. And I am doing this because when I got out of the psychiatric unit, I looked up on YouTube to see if other people had similar things happen to them or just relatable stories, and it kind of helped me cope with the fact that it did happen to me. And hopefully this video can help someone who's going through what I went through, what other people went through, and help cope with the fact that things do happen and you get put places in life, but things get better. So if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up, and let's just get on to the story. I was put in a behavioral health hospital here where I live at school, and the reason was just because my distant relatives were concerned about me. So I was called by 2 first responders because I had drank alcohol, and as you know, being depressed and drinking alcohol alone is just not a good idea. And also being depressed and drinking alcohol is it's a depressant, so it's going to make you more depressed. Especially if you're alone, and you shouldn't drink alone even if you don't have depression. But anyways, it can cause sadness. And I had been struggling for a while at this point with my depression and anxiety, so it didn't really come to a shock to me that me coping with my depression and anxiety with alcohol wasn't a good idea. And it got to this point, it didn't really come as a shock, but it definitely shook me to be put in the position I was. So I arrived at the ER. I was taken by ambulance. They wouldn't allow me to go with my fiance, he was in class at the time that the authorities were called, so I wasn't able to have him there to support me and back me up. I was on my own, and that was just really scary. And he, thank God, got out of class and came to the house right 5 minutes after they got there. And we were trying to convince them to just let him drive me, but they wouldn't allow it. And, I'm a college student. I can't afford to pay an ambulance bill. So I refused to sign the little sheet of paper that says that I allowed them to take me in an ambulance, because I didn't give them consent. And, I'm not, even though I was tipsy at this point, I wasn't even drunk anymore. I knew exactly what was going on. There was no reason that I shouldn't have been able to sign for myself and be my own individual. But the lady, the ENT who was driving the truck thingy, was like, well, a nurse can just sign for you. I'm like, okay, cool. So I've gotten a bill for an ambulance, which really sucks, and I'm actually in the process of refusing to pay it because I just think it's kind of unreal that they can just take away your rights and your freedoms like that. It's all about money for hospitals. Unfortunately, it's a lot like politics, and that's not going to be changed overnight. It just isn't ever. Especially in the US, whereas in a lot of other places, such as Europe, they have, free healthcare, and they have especially actually in England, they have free mental health care, which is really awesome. I was in the ER, the regular ER, not the mental health ER. And I was seen by a doctor who examined me and said, you know, he didn't think anything should be, there's no reason I should be put in the behavioral health unit. It's just required by law, and that he didn't have a choice but to. So that sucked. I kind of just rolled with the punches, and I went with Austin. We went to the behavioral health unit together. We were walked there by like a 2-year-old guy. Like, he looked like he was younger than me. He was somehow a tech. I don't know. It just felt uncomfortable trusting him. And so yeah. And then I ended up in the behavioral health unit of the hospital, which is not the psych ward. It's actually just like the unit that they hold you. It's like the triage for mental health patients until they can find somewhere for you to go or discharge you upon you seeing a psychiatrist. So I went ahead and freaked out. They took me to a room that wasn't in the actual like unit. So they have one unit that's like, basically it's like nurses in the middle, and everything is around the nurses, all like the beds and the little areas where people are resting. There was no room in there, so they took me to a different room that was just disgusting. It made me really uncomfortable. It just looked like a bunch of people who were detoxing, which is, if you don't know what that is, it's just if you're addicted to something, you detox, you come off of it, and it's actually a very difficult thing to do, and it was really scary in there. So I cried, and I begged not to be put in that room, and I'd wait for a bed in the other unit. So we went back to the other unit, and they were like, well, visiting hours are over, so you have to leave, to my fiance, which sucks. So before he left, they made me take out my nose ring, they made me take off my engagement ring, and they gave me like a pair of scrubs to wear, which, if you don't know, the pair of scrubs they give you have no, like, you're not allowed to have any kind of string, so they're like these little metal buttons around, so everything's very loose. It's very uncomfortable and gross. It just feels unsanitary and disgusting in there. I hated it. So he had to leave, and I think the worst thing that the people in this specific, and I don't know if this is in other behavioral health units or hospitals as well, but they just give you false hope, which is a really horrible thing to do with someone who's going through crisis. It's just to say, you know, oh, well, we think you're good, so you're going to be discharged tonight, just hold on. So I was sitting there with this false hope that I would be discharged that night, and then the doctor came over to see me, and I was really excited because I thought he was going to say you're good to go. But he said, you know, you're staying the night. No psychiatrist is going to be here until tomorrow. So just like calm down and lay back and go to sleep. And I was like, well, I can't go to sleep, so can you please give me melatonin? Because I was really, my biggest fear going into it was that they were going to drug me. I'm very sensitive to any kind of medication, and I know what goes down in these places, and I did not want any kind of medicine that I wasn't already, you know, prescribed. So they actually snuck and gave me Seroquel, which is an antidepressant that puts you to sleep. It's for insomnia and depression. And the next day I was so drowsy. I felt so drugged. Like, I kept falling asleep and going in and out of consciousness, like, all of that day. It was horrifying. And it sucked because Austin was able to visit with me, and the whole time, like, I kept falling asleep and waking up and falling asleep and waking up. So after about a total of 32 hours in the triage unit, the nurse practitioner, the psychiatric nurse practitioner, came to speak with me, and she just does a base assessment, and I wanted to leave, so I put on my best face and I tried really hard to just be honest. And she has to basically relay this message to the actual psychiatrist who's on call, because she doesn't have the power or the authority to say, oh, she's good to stay. So she relayed the message, and the psychiatrist said that I was not able to leave. I would be put on an IVC, which is involuntarily committed. It means you cannot leave the facilities. It's against the law. So I got put into and transferred to the hospital that was luckily attached to the hospital I was at. So I didn't have to like get an ambulance and go 2 hours away. I actually was just escorted by police, a very nice gentleman, put in the back of the car and talked to him on the way, and he was very sweet and kind of helped relax me a little. And I got to the unit. It was a Friday night, so I sat in this unit and I just waited it out for about an hour until someone came up and finally talked to me. Of course, like, someone greeted me and it was very sweet, but it was a shift change, so I got there around 7:30. So it was their shift change, so the woman who I had met, who was really sweet, was actually leaving, and it was 2 male psych techs who were coming in for the night shift, which made me uncomfortable. You'll notice a lot of women aren't as comfortable with men, you know, like being there and trying to support them who they don't really know, and that's really how I felt. So I was just uncomfortable. The people in the unit were really sweet. All of the patients were really nice, and there was no issues with them at all. It just was me sitting in this chair for like an hour waiting for someone to do this skin test. So I was able to then shower and be admitted. Finally, this nurse was like, let me do your skin test. And I was like, finally, God, to have taken it any longer. So you have to strip down, nothing on, and you have to show everything, because they want to make sure you're not hiding anything, or you don't have any like bruises, rashes that they didn't know about. So yeah, that's what that is. So I did that, felt violated, cool, move on. Then I got admitted by a really nice admissions girl who was super sweet, and went over with me that it's usually about 3 days that someone's in here. Like, the average time can range from 3 days to 5 days. So that made me a little nervous. So I was able to finally take a shower. They gave me like little industrial hospital shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, a toothbrush, and some toothpaste, and that was it. So I hadn't showered in 2 days, and I felt so disgusting from being in the hospital. So it did feel amazing to just shower. And then I was able to call Austin and just tell him that like everything was okay. I was good for the night. So my roommate was okay. Like, we didn't have any issues. It was just, we both didn't want to be there. I think she voluntarily committed herself, but I think once you're there for long enough, you want to leave. So unfortunately, since I was admitted on a Friday night, I was not able to see a doctor until Monday. So the doctor who does the discharges, I wasn't able to see until that Monday. And luckily, I had an amazing social worker who worked with my family, who came to visit and pushed to see her. I don't know where I'd be without them. I mean, they really pushed their ass off to see the social worker, because it's required to have like a family session before you're able to leave the facility. So we got that in right away, which was really, really nice. And since we had a plan in place, she was pushing for me to leave as well. So I was there for 3 days, and it was a very long period of 3 days, because you wake up at 6 a.m., get your vitals taken, you go to breakfast, you eat this disgusting, disgusting hospital food. Like, literally at my stomach, I was in so much pain, but I just didn't want to complain because I wanted to leave. So the way you get out of these places is by participating and showing that you're not, you know, mentally ill, you're not depressed, you're not anxious, you just have to participate. So it was a long 3 days, like truly difficult for me. There were some high points and there were some low points. You know, getting to see my family were definitely some of the high points, and just knowing that they were there for me, it really opened my eyes to the support that I am able to have, and a lot of people there just don't have. And then them leaving was really hard because I knew I was stuck in this position. I was being checked up on every 30 minutes by law, and that day that I was able to leave was just felt so amazing. Unfortunately, I did get billed for this, and I also can't pay that, so it sucks. It's shitty because I actually hear a lot of stories on the news about psychiatric hospitals keeping patients longer than they should and claiming that they're the patient's power of attorney. The doctor is the patient's power of attorney when the patient has parents who are their actual power of attorney. And they're doing this so they can get more money, and that's really disappointing to me, really horrifying, and I just think it's disgusting. So I'm really lucky that I was able to have a decent experience and not feel crazy and like I'm in prison. You know, it was, yes, I had nothing. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have anything. I just had me. But, you know, I did puzzles, I colored, and I did every activity in the book there so that my time would go by. And when I fell asleep, I dreamt that I was home, and that's how I got through. So if anyone is going through this experience, just know that in the end you learn lessons, even if you don't like it in the meantime, and it'll be okay. But if you are going to voluntarily commit yourself to a mental institution, please know, especially if it's not a private one, that if you're trying to discharge yourself, it will not be allowed. It says that it's allowed. You're allowed to leave at any time, but they're going to say they have power of attorney over you. So please know that your freedom will be taken, and I just don't want any of you guys to go through that. That would really, really fucking suck. So yeah, that's my story. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know I didn't say that much detail about like what it was like in the actual facility. It was just, you know, a basic, like I was in Unit 1, there were Unit 2, Unit 3, Unit 4, and that was it. So, and there was a cafeteria with, they had like heavy chairs so no one could throw chairs at each other, and that was also like a therapy room, and that was basically what it was. It was nothing. There was a gymnasium that was not even half a basketball court with one basketball net and like deflated footballs, deflated soccer balls, really nothing for recreation purposes that I saw. We had outside time, but there was really no outside area that we were allowed in, so we just stood there talking to the techs when we were outside. And the days I were there, it was actually raining, so a lot of people didn't want to go outside, but I liked the rain, so I wanted to go out and just kind of like feel it. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this experience helps any of you going through it or wanting to go through it, and I love you guys. Bye.